Welcome to our LB's Author Chat. If this is your first time live on an author chat or watching a recording, make sure you click the subscribe to my channel, LB the Lover of Books. I have over 30 recorded author chats posted there. I'm betting that you find more that you've read. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I'm sure the author would love to see it as well. Now, to introduce this international #1 best-selling author, Liz Nugent has spent the last 20 years working in Irish film, theater, and television. For the last decade, though, she's been an award-winning writer of radio, television drama, and has written short stories for children and adults, and has 5 novels. Her most recent, Strange Sally Diamond, has won numerous awards. Get this, Lisa Jewell said, "I just this minute finished Strange Sally Diamond, and I am shook to the core. Best book I've read this year. I will be calling it the book of 2023 when anyone asks. A truly incredible reading experience. I loved every damn second of it." Now, if that isn't the highest compliment, I don't know what is. And what does it mean to you to receive, all these such great author reviews? I mean, Ruth Ware, Andrew Horowitz, Claire McIntosh, and then all the publications. Like, there's so many, I can't even list them. So just tell us what that was like.
But the Lisa Jewell one was incredible because I've met her since. I did an event with her in Scotland in August or September. But it was so funny because the title of the book, Strange Sally Diamond, comes from the fact that I wanted her name to feature in the title, and I wanted it to be a quirky and unusual name. So I was just looking across at my own bookshelves, and I was kind of looking at the names, if there was names of characters. And then I saw like 5 or 6 Lisa Jewels in a row, and I thought, Jewell, that's a really interesting surname. That's a really catchy surname. Lisa Jewell, what a great name. What a great name. And then because of that, I called my character Sally Diamond. So thank you, Lisa, for the amazing endorsement and for the name of the character.
Does she know that she?
Yeah, I told her when I met her.
Shocked?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, that's a cool connection. I don't think I'll ever forget that. Too cool.
Yeah, she's a huge hero of mine. I've been reading her for years. She's just a dynamo, and her new book is brilliant.
Absolutely. She has so many wonderful books. So if you haven't read hers, definitely recommend those as well. Michelle and I got to see her recently in North Carolina. She was one of the stops for us to see, and she is fantastic live as well. So if you haven't had a chance, please try to see her in person and read her books, because she's fantastic. Okay, you showed the cover just a second ago. It's different from the UK version, which oftentimes they are. Why do you know? Did you get to pick it? Did you have any choice in it? And do you have a preference?
I don't really. Well, I'll show you the UK cover. And that's also been used in Canada. And this is the full American cover. And I didn't really get a say. Well, I kind of, my American editor emailed me with the American cover, and she said, everybody is in the design department really, really loves this, and we really want to go with it. And I said, oh, I'm not sure, is there any way we could go with the UK cover? Because I think that's really iconic. And then there was kind of silence. And then a week later, she said, we have to decide this today. Can you really please have another think about this cover? So I said, oh, okay. So and actually when it came, because I had only seen it on a JPEG, on a photo, but when it came, I kind of thought, actually, it is attractive. I do like it. So yeah, in the beginning I didn't, but when it has your name on it, you grow to like these things.
Yeah, it has your stamp on it. So
yeah,
they both are great covers. I will talk about it later, which one I like more, but I think it's just so interesting when you think about the different tastes of countries and what works, because they are the experts, right? They know what sells. And so
and the first one that the UK had sent me, and they had sent me a big long email saying, 3 pages long sort of email telling me how much everybody in the whole of Penguin UK was behind this cover, and they tested it with readers and blah, blah, blah. And it was awful. It was so awful. And I just said, no. I said, I'm not having that. And it's the first time I'd ever actually thrown a kind of diva strop and said, I'm not having it. I'm just not having it. So they went back to the drawing board and came back with this magnificent cover. So sometimes it works when you put your foot down.
Well, excellent.
That was the first time I'd really done it, so I was worried, I thought, oh no, they're gonna hate me, but it worked.
Well, I think they're both great for different reasons. I would like to hear your best blurb on Strange Sally Diamond, because it's so interesting, but it's hard to kind of put your finger on it. So how do you describe it to readers?
I would always introduce her by saying that she's a very reclusive character who has lived with her widowed father for a very long time. She takes things very literally. She is neurodiverse to a certain extent, but is quite happy in her space in the world. She is reclusive to the point that she pretends to be deaf to avoid any interaction. But when her father dies, she disposes of his body in a kind of an unorthodox manner, shall we say. And this brings her to the attention of her community, her neighbors, and then the police, and then the media, and then her whole world breaks open, and she discovers the truth about her past and who she really is. Because she's always known she was adopted, but she doesn't remember anything before the age of 7. And she suddenly discovers this very traumatic past that explains to her why her behavior has been so unusual, why she doesn't like mixing with people, why she doesn't like noise, why she finds it very hard to trust people, etc.
I think it's absolutely fascinating. I will say that everybody here knows that everyone has read the book, so we can talk spoilers. You don't have to worry about.
Oh, okay.
Because I would think this book would be extremely hard to discuss if you can't get into the nitty gritty, because it really limits how much you can share, I would think.
Sure. Yeah.
So, okay. How did you come up with the idea of this book? What was the seed? I mean, we know the name, where it came from. Thank you, Lisa Jewell. But what about the idea, and how did you move with it?
I think the initial idea, well, there was the opening words, "Put me out with the bins," just comes from conversation. "Put me out with the trash." It is for the American edition, but in the Irish edition, it's "Put me out with the bins." But that opening line, all my opening lines in all my books are startling for a reason. They have to. I design them so that they catch the attention of the reader, and hopefully don't let the reader go until the last page. But that came about because of silly conversations I was having with my husband about what we want to do with each other when we die. And he wants his ashes to be scattered across a mountain range. And I was kind of thinking, the chances are, with life expectancy these days, I'll be in my 80s or 90s, and he's expecting me to climb a mountain range to scatter his ashes. And I said, no. I said, well, I'm going to make it really easy for you. Just put me out of the bins. So that's where that came from. That was just a throwaway line. And then I thought, what kind of person would put somebody out with the bins? And, what would those circumstances be? But really, the kernel for the character came from To Kill a Mockingbird and the character of Boo Radley, because we know very little about Boo Radley. I presume everybody's read To Kill a Mockingbird, or
yes, I would assume so too.
Boo Radley is a recluse as well. He never comes out of the house. There are very few kind of little keys to why, or to what his personality is. One of them is the fact that he stabbed his father in the leg when he was a boy, And I thought, why would a boy stab his father in the leg? And then I thought, and why would a father who was stabbed in the leg by a little boy lock him in the house for the rest of his life? And then, you know, as the story goes on, Boo, whose real name is Arthur, Boo's father dies. And if I get this right, and he still doesn't come out of the house because he's so conditioned at that stage that he stays in the house. But his brother Nathan comes and goes, has a regular job, comes and goes from the house every day. And the local children are fascinated by him. And he's very fond of them. He leaves little treats in the hollow of a tree for them. So I like the idea of this reclusive character who was kind of fond of children. So, you know, that comes up in the opening chapters of Sally Diamond.
You know, I did not put that together, and I love that that was inspiration, because one of my favorite novels. But I love also that you have a little dark humor that started to put it out in the bins, right? Because that is an important part of Sally. Not that she would see that as humorous, but I love that you came up with it. All right, so we immediately go into Sally's story, but we also get bits of her childhood through her brother's perspective, and it gets pretty dark at times.
Yeah.
So as an author, do you immerse yourself when writing because you have to get in that dark space and that mindset and then have to come up for sunshine, or are you easily able to separate out, you know, because you hear of authors or actors having to try to put themselves in the shoes, and how does that affect you,
Yeah.
especially if it's raining all the time?
Well, yeah, no, it hasn't rained as much when I was writing this. But I think because I wrote this during lockdown, Ireland had one of the longest lockdowns in the world, I think. And I wrote this during lockdown. And I think because I was socially isolated, there's lots of social isolation going on in this book, whether it's enforced or voluntary. There's lots of people who are locked away. And I found it pretty easy to come in and out of the characters. There was one scene when Peter is locked in with his mother. The first time he meets his mother, really. The first time he remembers meeting his mother, when he's 6 or 7 years old. And in the UK edition of that, he is very violent towards her. But and that was the one scene that really upset me and gave me a couple of sleepless nights. And I had to run it past my editor here, and she said, no, that's a really gasp moment, you know, keep that. And then I ran it past my American editor and she said, no, that's got to go. So you got a much softer version of that chapter than those in the UK did.
Wow, I had no idea. So, you know, I interviewed Claire Pooley back at the beginning of this year for Iona Iverson's Rules for Commuting, and the title was different. But then we also found out that words would change, like you mentioned, bins versus trash. But this is a major scene change. Did you want to push back on that, or did you feel like I'm going to trust?
No, because I felt uncomfortable about it myself. You know, I was uncomfortable enough to question my editor here, you know, saying, have I gone too far with this? Is this too much? So I kind of knew I was pushing it. So when the Americans said, no, it's too much, I thought, okay, that's fine. But I needed a good enough reason for Denise to deny or to sort of not acknowledge that Peter existed at all. So what, instead of like the reason in your edition is because she thinks that he deliberately pushed her, but in fact he pushed her because he was scared and to get her out of his way. Whereas in the UK edition, he straps on his sturdy shoes and he kicks her in the stomach.
Wow, that is a big difference. And I think does she also compare him to his father, like think that he's his father's in both editions then?
Yeah, you're just like your father, which is why she denied, like she she never tells anybody that he exists. You know, when she gets out, because she is so horrified by him. And it's also a good 7 years later, I think 7 or 8 years later, before she's rescued.
Right. Yeah. There's a big gap.
No, it's 5 years later,
between the
because
siblings.
Sally is
Yeah.
born the day after that. So, and they're rescued when Sally is 5, and then age 7 is her first memory. So yeah, that was a tough one to write. Yeah, that was the only really gruesome scene. Like, the rest of it I was okay with. I could go there and close the laptop and walk away and watch Schitt's Creek, or
Yeah.
something to take my mind off the horrible stuff I was writing.
You know, Tracy said it seems so strange that the American version would need to be tamed down. America is a violent country, and we seem to have no problem with some pretty violent movies and TV shows. Was there any explanation given for, I mean, I know that you felt uncomfortable, but your editor, was there an explanation that just said like where the line was drawn or what the thought process was behind it?
I think it was particularly because of the Roe versus Wade reversal, and they just didn't want to have any violence done to pregnant women, because it was a particularly sensitive time. And I totally agreed with them.
Well, someone also said that their son, Gina said her son lives in the UK, and she's now saying, you need to go buy me a copy of that version because she wants to read it. Michelle also read the UK version. It's just so interesting. I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
And you're working with separate editors. So how does that work? Annette wants to know that separate editing process. Would love to have some insight into that.
Oh, well, most of my editing is done by when I say Ireland, UK, it's because Ireland is a separate country to the UK, but my Ireland and UK publishing is the same, and my editor is Irish and based in Ireland, and I am Irish and based in Ireland, so I know the terms are confusing, but so my Irish editor, she does the bulk of the work. So America gets the finished product pretty much, and then they just polish it, or they go through it, or they see a scene like that and they kind of go, no, that's too far. And there's actually a slightly different ending in the American version as well.
Okay.
The letter from Angela.
Yes.
That's not in the UK version. So we leave Sally absolutely devastated on her own.
What? Okay, my mind is like blown. Okay, go back and explain this because I am just floored.
It's the only other difference. The Americans my American editor just thought it was too bleak. And, that we'd taken Sally on this journey, and then you just dumped her back into, where she was the very beginning, but without her piano, and having learned that nobody is worth trusting. And they just thought it was too unfair to the character. And I love Sally, and I know it was really cruel, but I love Shakespeare's tragedies. I love utter devastation at the end of a book. That's how I like my books to finish. But no, America said, no, we need hope for Sally. So actually, the first version of hope at the end of the book was to put in that chapter with Amanda, who was the next generation. And it was to demonstrate that the next generation would not be affected by this. She was going to reject all of this. She wasn't going to go on with the podcast. She wasn't going to get involved in finding out anything about her birth parents or anything. She didn't want to know. She just wanted to be a concert pianist, and she was a composer, and, she wanted to be known for that rather than this dark backstory. So I thought that was the hope. There's the hope. The hope is that the next generation are not going to dwell on this, but it wasn't enough hope for America. They needed hope for Sally. So I put in those 2 pages. It was really easy to do, and I didn't mind doing it.
I know, but I mean, I also love a Shakespearean tragedy, and you know, and I understand why she would want to just be a concert pianist and just let it go, right? I mean, Sally, everybody told her it's best for her not to remember either, right? Because that's a way to separate, to compartmentalize and be a survivor if that's what works for you. So I'm like, what's up with us Americans that we have to have this happy ending? Um, but you know, I'm sure that they have data on this and that this is, you know, what they think
Yeah. I
Americans need.
mean, one of my books, my third book, Skin Deep, was never published in America because they felt it was too dark.
I mean, we have dark authors. I mean, geez.
Well, I always just throw American Psycho back in their face, and I'm just kind of going,
Exactly.
hello.
Yeah. I mean, how many great characters, favorite characters does George R. Martin kill off? I mean, it happens. It's gory, it's
I
gruesome.
can't read his stuff because it's too violent.
See? And I mean, that comes out of the US. I'm just like, ah. And Aaron Rose says Disney has ruined us, that we need this. Um, it's crazy. Okay, so there, Annette brings up the audiobook. It's an Irish narrator. So I'm assuming she narrated the two different versions for this, or are there two different narrators?
No, there's actually in the American audiobook, if you got the audiobook in America, you should have the same narration. And actually that mother and son scene is violent,
Mm-hmm.
but the Angela letter scene is read by me.
Yes. Okay. So
That makes
it's,
sense?
yeah. So it's the exact same narration. If you listen to the audiobook, it's just the addition of the letter.
Yeah. But there's three different narrators. There's one actress does Jess Regan does Sally, and Stephen Hogan does Peter, and Sarah Lynham does Amanda, and I do Angela,
Yes. Okay.
because it had to be last minute. It was such a last minute change. So I only realized, I think, a week before the book was published, that they needed to put that letter in to the audiobook.
Is that your first time narrating?
No, I've done some voice work before. I trained as an actress a long time ago.
So I mean, but in the audiobook setting,
Oh
like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Um, okay, comments are coming through. I can't even keep up. Tracy said, I love the narrator. I will agree. I found it fascinating, and it really made it so immersive, because you're getting their voice is right there in your head, and you don't really know how to take Peter, right? I mean, it's so questionable. Um, let's see. So it says my Audible version, Annette, she got the Irish versions, had the violent scene, but no letter. I wonder if they added it later. I read it the day it came out. She got it off
Um,
Audible.
yeah, she would have got the UK edition. She would have got the UK edition. Sorry. Somebody there might send you the Angela letter.
Oh yeah, we will definitely message me. This is crazy. And then someone else in Canada said that they weren't even allowed to purchase the audiobook in Audible. So
Oh,
it's
really?
like everyone had in this room almost had a completely different experience, and everybody's like researching it right now. I can see them. This is just blowing.
See all the nodding heads.
Yes, that's what I mean. It's just blowing up. Just I can't even get over that. Anything else? I mean, I feel like I need a follow-up question. Anything else that's language, like, did you fight back on any of it with language with the US, or just
No,
it
no,
is?
literally the two things are the violence in the mother and child scene with Peter and Denise, and the letter from Angela. They're the only two things that are in the American version that are not in the UK version.
Okay.
In the Audible version, as far as I know, because I went in and recorded it, the Angela letter should be in that. But if you bought it the first week, maybe it didn't make it in then. But I don't know, because I have no access to Audible in the States. So I haven't heard it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. I got to get my brain on straight now. How long did you said this was completely written during quarantine?
Yeah.
How long?
About 18 months.
Okay.
About 18 months, yeah. I had a really bad accident in 2019. I spent quite some time in a hospital, and I came out at the end of January 2020, and couldn't really walk very well or anything, and then went into lockdown in March. So it was finished by halfway through 22, I suppose, and then published in March 23 here and July 23 there.
Okay. So, first of all, I'm sorry you had a horrible accident, and I don't want to pry into your personal health, but did that experience also help you write from Sally's mother's perspective, the pain that she might have endured? Because you said a pretty bad accident. Obviously, this was an intentional abuse, but does that sort of experience also transform you as an author?
Well, I have a medical condition, so I've been dealing with pain for most of my life, really. So, and actually it didn't help because I was on so much medication when I came out of hospital that I found it very hard to write for a long time. Sorry, what am I talking about? Did this book come out? I'm just trying to think. Yeah, sorry. I had another book, Little Cruelties, came out in March 2020, the day before the bookstores closed for 8 months. And then, yeah, and so I did, I wrote Sally Donnelly during lockdown. Just had a
It's
break
the
there.
COVID warp. Like, I feel like it's a time warp that
Yeah.
we all can't wrap our head around at some point. So no issues there. Did you have to do much research with this novel? But were there topics that you just didn't have a handle on and needed to get more info?
I tend not to do research. Like, I didn't read any books about those types of kidnapping cases because I was afraid that if I did, I would mirror them too closely. And so I just really used my imagination. Obviously, I had read Room by Emma Donoghue, and loved it, but I just wanted to do my own take. I always wondered, what happens to the kids of those, of the kidnapper and the kidnappee? What happens to the kids of those children? Because presumably, their mothers, how could they ever lead a normal life after such thing? And Denise, I think, is in captivity for 17 years. Lindy is in captivity for 27 years.
Yeah.
Lindy is so absolutely brainwashed by the end. Like, she absolutely developed Stockholm syndrome, but that's because I think Peter treats her kindly.
Right.
Whereas Denise is never, like, she is so utterly traumatized because she's been brutalized by
Right.
Conor Geary from the get-go. Like, all of her relationship with him is based on pain and brutality, whereas Lindy's with Peter is a bit kinder, I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
Still awful.
absolutely. Conor Gary is a monster, but he also created another monster in Peter, right? It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
and I think Peter thinks he is a much better person, because he bucks what his dad does and makes excuses, but it's
yeah. Still awful.
still
That
awful, still
scene
horrible.
when Peter kind of disappears into the airport, and we know he ends up in a small town in New Mexico. And what I really had in my head then was, the final scene in Silence of the Lambs. As the credits roll, we see Hannibal Lecter walking down a street somewhere in South America,
Yeah.
and the camera pans out until he just disappears into the crowd. Like, in
Yeah.
the beginning, we're right behind him, and then the camera pans up and up and out, and we just see him become a dot, and then he just disappears into the crowd. And that's kind of what I wanted for Peter, that we know he's Hannibal Lecter. He's going to go off and do something terrible, you know, and we're not going to be able to stop him or know where he is or what he does. But
yeah, I mean, I didn't even need to know that Peter was going to build another, captive, another structure to have this, because it was just such a pattern for him at that point. And
yeah,
he
he
never
had
did.
no other, he
Yeah.
had no other role model. You know, he had a friend for like a very brief period, the Maori boy. But and apart from Lindy, he had no other influence on his life except his father. He didn't know how to be a man.
Well,
You know,
and didn't know how to be a friend either, right? All he had was this warped version of it. So I have a question. It just came to me. What if the New Zealand friend had not died and he had actually continued a relationship with him? Do you think he would have gone along with the Lindy abduction and captivity? Or do you think that might have changed his trajectory because he may have learned how to be a friend?
yeah, I think, yeah, because I think he would have grown very close to Ranji,
Right.
and I think he would have told Ranji, and
Yeah.
Ranji would have alerted, because Ranji had a fairly strong moral compass.
Mhm.
Um, he knew what was right and wrong. Because I think at one stage Peter told him that his father used to beat his mother, and Ranji said that was wrong and that was bad.
Right. That
And
he should never hit a woman, right?
yeah, yeah. Even though Ranji's um, mother had been left by his father and he'd been abandoned with his aunt, you know. So both boys had kind of dysfunctional parental relationships, but Peter didn't know it, and Ranji did.
Right.
I loved that friendship, and
I
I
did
was so
too.
sorry to have to kill him. I was so sad.
What
It broke my heart.
what
Oh,
was the saddest moment for you? Or, one of the hardest?
I think the saddest was Lindy having her baby taken away.
Yeah.
You know, like all she wanted at this stage. At this stage, she had, but I understand why Peter did it as well, because he didn't want to have another person in captivity, because he knew it was wrong. He
Right.
knew it was wrong, and yet he couldn't stop himself. But he knew that bringing a child into this warped world would be a crime too far. And I suppose on some level, he might have been afraid that he would turn into his father,
Mhm.
and become sexually attracted to that child, and that might have been one of his fears. So he wanted that child out of there for the child's own sake. And, that child luckily had good adoptive parents, and, we see her in the last chapter.
Well, Connor Gary specifically took him out to raise him as his own son and not sexually abusing him, but obviously warping him with emotional abuse,
Yeah.
and continuing this. So,
And the fake illness.
right, exactly. So, how much do you blame Peter in all of this?
Oh, I think Peter's so screwed up by his upbringing that um his moral compass is completely out of whack. He has had no examples of a maternal figure apart from this kind of what he would have seen as a monster, a witch. He was told was a witch. So he hasn't had any proper guidance. He hasn't had anybody to guide him. And even when he goes into the world of work, eventually, when he works in fintech, is that the term you use there? Finance tech
Yeah.
technician. When he goes into that world, he can't relate to his colleagues. He can't
Mhm.
relate to people. I guess I've worked in offices, and there's a person who's a bit odd, you know. And actually, Sally's based on some of those people I was in school with. Like, well, I'm 56 years old now, and when I was a kid, there was no such thing as neurodivergence or autism, or of course there was, we just didn't have labels. And so there were people in my class who were a bit odd, you know, who didn't mix with other people, or, you know, didn't want to talk or whatever. So I kind of wanted to pay homage to them by putting them at the center of a story and making them have very rich lives. And, you know, Sally has a good sense of humor as well. I'd love to spend time with her. You know, I'd love to hang out with her. I think she's great.
Well, yeah.
Peter, I'm not so sure. I don't think I'd like to spend any time with Peter. He doesn't know how to be a man. He doesn't know how to relate to people. He has no idea.
Well, she had I say wonderful. She had adoptive parents that did their best, or what they thought was best, and he had nothing like that, you know. So, I mean,
unfortunately, Sally's father dominated how she was brought up and how she was educated and everything. And I think if he had listened to his wife, she might have had a better outcome in terms of mixing. She should have gone to college. She's very bright. She should have gone to music school. I've lost the thread of what I was saying.
well, we have a great question, I think, that will follow up on all of this. So Erin Rose says, one of the themes that I got out of the book seems to revolve around nature versus nurture. How much are you born with certain qualities, anger, speaking bluntly, versus how much your environment, hold on, it moved on me, how much your environment and the people who raise you influence your behavior? Was this intentional or just something that she got out of it? And lots of people are asking.
Yeah, that's actually a theme in all of my books. All of my books examine the nature versus nurture argument. For example, Sally is violent when threatened, you know. She's not without her flaws, and you kind of go, well, why is that? And is it because her birth father is violent, or is it because she has a muscle memory of the trauma and terror of witnessing violence against her mother? You know, we don't know. And her love of the piano, she only discovers very late on in the book, is because her birth father was a pianist. Like Connor or Peter tells her that, you know, her father was a great, loved the piano. So she discovers that, you know, this gift she has comes from her father, and it ruins it for her, you know, this piano playing. So there are things that are inherited, but I don't know if she would have gravitated towards the piano if her father hadn't been a good pianist. But I suspect that her violent reactions are reactions to threat that she suffered when she was a kid.
Well, yeah, I mean, she seemed to love the piano much more before she knew that her real father also had that. Like, it's almost, I mean, it's so scary, right, to think that you're taking parts of this evil man into your own personality.
Yeah, she takes an axe to the piano. She destroys it.
Yeah.
You know, it's the one thing, it's all the way through the book, it's the one thing that's given her solace. It's the one thing, you know, like when it's all over and people have asked me, you know, what's Sally doing now? Because they're so worried about her. I say, don't you worry. She's bought a new piano and she's teaching a baby and all the local kids how to play the piano. That's what she's doing now. Because, you know, we all want something good for Sally in the end, me included. So,
who are you having to assure with that? Is it your Irish UK readers that didn't get the happy ending, or Americans needing even more?
My Irish UK readers, and some Americans have asked me as well, but my Irish UK readers definitely looking for reassurance, because all they have is that last chapter with Sally saying I was right to trust nobody and everybody lied to me, and the world is a terrible place, and I'm going back into my shell and I'm never coming out.
I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. Don't think too much. Just answer.
Okay.
All right. Ireland or New Zealand?
Ireland. Although
Early
I have spent time in New Zealand.
early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Plotter or pantser?
Pantser.
Hardcover or paperback?
Paperback.
Do you play an instrument?
No.
Shopping online or in person?
Online.
Do you have a literary best friend?
Many.
Can you name a favorite? Share
Jane Casey. She's
Thank
an Irish author of detective series. She lives in London.
Perfect. Do you have a favorite book festival?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to say Vancouver or Calgary, because I've just come back from them. Vancouver Writers Festival and Calgary Word Fest were just amazing.
And I asked you earlier, but I don't know if we got an answer. The UK or the US cover more?
UK, but don't tell the US.
I'm from the US and like the UK better too. I admitted it. I said I would tell y'all later, but I do. I think it's too cool. Thank you so much for that. All right. Who has a question? I know we have some in the chat box that we'll get to, but if you have a live question, feel free to raise your hand and I will spotlight you and you can ask her yourself if you'd like to. If you don't, I can ask these. All right. I'm going to go to some of these that are in the chat box. Aaron Rose says, why or how did you gravitate to this genre, a dark thriller?
I don't know. I have no idea, because all of my books are kind of dark thrillers. And I don't know. I think you write the book that you want to read. When I started writing, genre didn't cross my mind. Like, I just wrote the book that was in me, and it turned out to be really popular, Unraveling Oliver. So I didn't set out to choose the genre chose me. And I guess I like books with a kind of a sinister turn in them, and I like very flawed characters. But Sally Diamond is the first likable protagonist I've written. Like most of the other books are written from the point of view of the psychopath. Nobody as psychopathic as Conor Geary, just psychopaths in other ways. I didn't want to get into the head of Conor Geary for a second. No.
Well, this is a great follow-up question. Sonia says, do you ever find yourself haunted by a character you have written, one you think about after you are finished with the book?
Well, yeah, Sally, definitely. Sally, Barney in Unraveling Oliver. Let me see. In Little Cruelties, Daisy. Yeah, there's somebody in all of them that, Daisy is very damaged by the end of Little Cruelties.
Here's another question from Kelly. She says, not a question, but she said she did like the humor with Sally. I mean, the red beret for the funeral, and that she took things so literally, was both humorous but sad. I mean, obviously you said that's your first, likable protagonist. So how do you switch and make that change when writing?
I don't know. I think when I figured it out that she was a victim of such trauma, I had to invest some humor into her. And like, I have a lot of what Sally says, the clumsy things she says are things that I think, I hate shopping malls. God almighty. I absolutely am terrified of large shopping malls. That line she says about I don't wear a bra. I don't know why women insist on them. They're really comfortable. Is that not the truest thing ever? Like, why do we do this to ourselves? And she also says, when somebody suggests that she puts fake tan on her legs, and she's going, my legs are the color of legs. Why would I paint them a different color? And, you know, there are things that I think in my head all the time. And, you know, if it wasn't for social convention, I would never wear makeup. So there's a lot of me in Sally. And when the vicar says to her, you know, I wonder if you'll consider coming back to church, and she says, no, it's really boring. That's me too. And she tells the kids not to go to school because it's awful. That would be my experience too, you know. So there's a lot of me. I could just take off all of my own filters and say whatever the hell I liked and thought that you're not supposed to say, and put it into Sally's mouth. So she's the closest to me of any of the characters I've ever written.
Well, I'm glad that you got some sparks of fun and humor while you were in quarantine, because it sounds like with this dark novel it was much needed. And that asks, is there a chance for a sequel? Where is Peter off to next?
There might be a chance for a sequel, depending on Netflix International have optioned it at the moment. Now this means nothing because everything gets optioned, nothing gets made. I know this from long years of experience. Almost every book gets optioned, but they have a specific actress attached to this, so it's more likely to get made than the other books. So I don't know if it does go, I don't think they're going to want to leave it where the book leaves it. So they will want some extra material for, you know, they could get two. I think they could probably get 2 or 3 series out of this book, because there's so much I cut from that book. It was 130,000 words originally, and I had to cut 30,000 words. So there's another quarter of that book. There's a scene where Sally goes on a blind date. She's set up on a blind date and it doesn't go well. There's a scene where she goes for a job interview. And there's also a scene where Peter, when he comes back to Ireland in the beginning, he finds the old house where he was brought up, and he breaks in to the house and he wanders around the house. So like all of that had to go. But if they were to make the TV series, if that goes ahead, all of that could go back in.
Oh my God. I feel like today, October 29th, is my birthday. It's not, but I feel like it is. So a series on Netflix. Can you tell us who the actress that's tied to?
I can't. She was in Game of Thrones. That's all I can tell you. Doesn't
Oh.
narrow it down much, does it?
No, but that is narrowing, so we will take it. We will take it.
And I'm afraid I've never seen Game of Thrones, so because it's so violent, I couldn't watch it. But yeah, she I think she had quite a significant role in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk, you know, hard scenes to watch, dark series, I think of the UK series Happy Valley, like it can be so dark in those PBS series. All right, we still have so many questions and we're running out of time. So, okay, someone asked about your books, and if this is the only book that they've read from you, what's the next book you would say, here's my backlist, go to this one next?
I would go to Lying in Wait next.
Why? Without giving spoilers, why?
It's the easiest to read. It's relatively short, and the narrative is more linear. It starts at a point. The opening line is, my husband didn't mean to kill Annie Doyle, but the lying tramp deserved it. And it starts off, yeah, a man and his wife, very well to do. He's a judge, she's his wife. They murder a young woman on the opening page, and then they bury her in their garden. And their son thinks that there's something up with the family. He doesn't know quite what's going on, but anyway, that's yeah, that's the one I'd go to next. And then
I thumbs up from that one. Like Michelle says, Lying in Wait is so good.
Oh, good.
We have chill bumps from the Netflix, from Kelly. She said, "What do you think about the DNA stuff we do today? It tied into your story so much."
Yeah, I've met so many people who've discovered, like doing that ancestry.com thing, who have discovered extra siblings, who have discovered that their parents aren't necessarily their parents, or one of them certainly isn't. Um, it's I would advise people, if they want to do it, go into it with an open mind, because you might get a surprise that you don't want. And I've heard so many stories of it. And yeah, it was pretty dumb of Peter not to think of that. But,
Yeah.
you know, we had to make him a bit dumb for the sake of that part of the story to work.
Amber also says, "I will always love unraveling Oliver the most. It was my first book of Liz's that I ever read, and it blew my mind. My imagination doesn't work like Liz's." So another good shout out for one of her backlist.
Yeah, that's my first book. That was my very first book. And yeah, I'm really, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot in that book. It's really short. I think it's only 80,000 words. You would read it in a day, but it's really short, but there's so much story in it.
Jill wants to know what authors you like to read and to give us some of your book recommendations from those.
Okay, you asked me to prepare that earlier. Um,
I knew that question was coming from one of our readers. It
yeah.
happens every author chat.
I really liked The Giant's House by Elizabeth McCracken. Do you know her?
I don't.
Giant's House. I liked Cider House Rules by John Irving.
Yes.
I'll just go for the American ones here, just to make sure they're ones that you've heard of. Secret History, Donna Tartt.
Mhm.
I Know This Much Is True by Wally Lamb. Beloved by Toni Morrison. The Mars Room by Rachel Kushner. Sing Unburied Sing by Jesmyn Ward. It's a recent one. And
There's a new one out too.
I know, I'm trying to
I
get
haven't
my
read it
hands
yet
on it.
though. I haven't read
Not
it.
out here yet, but I'm gonna get my hands on it. And Razorblade Tears by Sean Cosby, S.A. Cosby. That's one that it actually is very violent, but I think it gets away with it because it's in the context of a very violent community, I guess. I think he's quite a genius.
Well, he's one that I do want to interview. So if anybody has a connection to the Leo King, to S.A. Cosby, let me know, because he is one I would really want to interview. I agree with that. What are you working on now? Like, can you tell us anything about it? I mean, it sounds like you may have to write some more stuff for this, and I don't want to stop that. But is there anything else on your plate?
Um, I'm starting a new book. And I'm only starting it now, really, because I've been away promoting this for nearly all of this year. But I should be much further, so I'm way behind. So I have to do that. But I'm having some minor brain surgery. I know it sounds ridiculous. I'm having very minor brain surgery in December to try and fix some of the stuff that happened when I had a brain hemorrhage when I was a kid. It might work, it might not work, but anyway, I've nothing to lose by trying it. So that will happen in December. So I'll take a couple of weeks off then, and then by mid-December, I need to be back into the book. And I'm ignoring Christmas, and I'm spending the whole of December in London, where I'm having the surgery, so that I can be close by the hospital in case anything goes wrong.
Well, good luck with surgery. We'll all wish you well.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully you can at least have a good meal or do a little bit of celebrating, even if it's don't ignore it for a little bit. But it's just been such a delight. What is your writing? Is your writing like all in all day, don't ignore everything? Or is it on like you said, pantser? So I'm thinking You get it in where you can.
Yeah, no, it's like I'm really bad about discipline. It's whenever I can, motivate myself to do it, which hasn't been very often. But then coming up to the deadline, I'm like all day, all night until my brain fries, and then I freak out and have to take a week off.
So
um,
you're a procrastinator, I'm hearing.
I'm the world's Olympian procrastinator. Absolutely, I'm terrible. I cannot nail myself to the chair. And it seems like every time I open the laptop and every time I open that document, I just fall asleep. There's something stopping me. There's something telling me not to write the book I want to write.
Well,
But
yeah, I saw a t-shirt once. It said like procrastinators unite. Meeting starts tomorrow. So that's kind of how it works. All
love
right.
that.
Well, you are just fantastic. You're a jewel. You're a diamond. We are just so excited for this book and that it made it over to the US and that we now know even more about. I'm just gonna have to process a lot of this to see, if I can come up. I don't know. I'm just like floored by all of it. I just thank you so much for giving us so much of you, obviously through Sally and so much tonight. So thank you, Liz. Thank all you readers out there for joining. Please make sure and check out her website where you're going to find more events coming. It looks like you still might have some coming up with Ireland, Iceland, Bulgaria. Is that right? So you're
Yeah, that's
still
left.
moving and shaking.
Yeah, I have Iceland and Bulgaria and one in Ireland to go before I come back from Bulgaria on the 1st of December, and then I go to London on the 3rd of December, and I have the surgery on the 4th of December. So I really haven't had a minute. It's crazy.
You
So
really have not. I
yeah,
mean,
being in the hospital will be my rest. That will be my,
downtime.
get a few days off. Yeah. In
Well,
hospital.
you've been amazing. I can't tell you how many readers out there have also said, I mean, you're very active on Instagram. So please follow her. I know she's responded to posts and likes and all kinds of stuff. We just love that interaction as readers. Would love everyone to follow the LBs, the Lover of Books, on Facebook and the Bookstagram to find out about reviews, recommendations, and more author chats. Coming up in November, I'm going to be chatting with two amazing novelists, Tracy Lang for her sophomore novel, The Connollys of County Down, and then Kathleen Grisham for her historical novel, Crow Mary, in honor of Native American Heritage Month. If you know of an author that you would like to chat with, please let me know. Again, S.A. Cosby, shout out if anybody has a connection. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, LB the Lover of Books. And if you missed any of the live author chats, I get those up hopefully fairly soon. I'm traveling a little bit, so give me a little bit extra time. And thanks again, Liz. This was one of my favorites. I don't know. Like, I feel like I can't even wrap my brain around it. So, and she's joining
All
from
the tea.
all the tea, exactly. And she's dialing in from Ireland and she's sick with the hoarse voice. Like, you are such a trooper and we just love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It was really nice to see everybody and get all your great questions. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a great night.